Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to explore something deeply personal, something many of us might have felt or maybe seen in others, that, often unspoken experience of loneliness and emotional emptiness.
hmm
Think about those times, maybe you're surrounded by people or just scrolling through endless online stuff, and yet that quiet sense of being truly alone just kind of lingers.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's less a longing and more just, I don't know, a feeling of just existing without that inner spark we all kind of hope for.
That lack of vibrancy almost.
Exactly. So, what's really going on underneath it all when we feel this way? If exploring the roots of these feelings and maybe some ways forward sounds interesting, well, we invite you to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss our future explorations.
Definitely worth digging into.
Okay, so let's really get into this. Loneliness. At its core, it isn't just about being physically by yourself, is it?
No, not at all. That's a really crucial distinction to make right off the bat. You can be solitary, perfectly happy with your own company. Loneliness, though, that's different. It's that subjective feeling, that experience of lacking meaningful connection. It's like a gap between the connection you want and what you actually have.
That makes sense. And then there's this other thing, emotional emptiness. It feels different somehow.
It does.
It's less about that sort of yearning for other people and more like an internal lack, like a lack of warmth or joy
Yeah.
or just feeling truly alive inside.
Yeah, it's like being physically present, but emotionally you're just absent,
Yeah.
checked out
Yeah.
almost. Exactly. So while loneliness is often about longing for that external connection, emptiness feels more like an internal state, a kind of void or detachment,
Yeah.
even if you technically have people around you.
So it's really key then to separate physical isolation from emotional disconnection. You could be alone and feel totally connected.
Absolutely. Or conversely, be in a huge crowd and feel utterly, profoundly lonely because that emotional attunement just isn't there.
That resonance is missing.
Precisely.
So where does this stuff begin? It feels like our earliest experiences really set the stage, don't they? Like attachment theory.
That's a huge piece of the puzzle, yes.
Hmm.
Our very first bonds, usually with parents or primary caregivers, they really form a kind of blueprint for how we relate to others later on.
How so?
Well, think about it. If a child gets consistent, responsive care, someone tunes into their needs, offers comfort, they learn that relationships are basically safe and reliable.
Okay.
That tends to foster what we call a secure attachment style. They feel more comfortable with intimacy, with depending on others and letting others depend on them.
But if that care is inconsistent or neglectful,
Then it's a different story. If nurturing is unpredictable or maybe even threatening, a child might develop an insecure attachment style. Intimacy can start to feel uncertain or maybe even dangerous, so they might approach relationships with anxiety or try to avoid closeness altogether.
and it's fascinating, isn't it, how kids try to make sense of things. If a parent is, say, emotionally unavailable, the child doesn't usually think, oh, mom or dad is struggling.
No, they almost always internalize it.
They think, something must be wrong with me.
Yeah, exactly. I must be unlovable, or I'm too much, or my needs don't matter. That narrative gets formed really early.
And that can become a template for future relationships.
Absolutely. These core beliefs about yourself and relationships, formed so young, become like these invisible lenses. You might deeply desire closeness, but at the same time be terrified of the vulnerability it requires.
Which ironically just keeps you feeling lonely.
Precisely. You might unconsciously recreate those familiar patterns or push people away just when things start to feel close, reinforcing those old wounds. It's a really powerful cycle.
And it's not just, psychological theories. Our brains themselves are involved. They're actually wired for connection, right? Specific areas light up.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Neuroscience backs this up strongly. Areas like the anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, the prefrontal cortex, they're all involved in processing social things like empathy, attachment, and even social pain.
Social pain, like feeling left out.
Yes. Groundbreaking work, particularly by the late John Cacioppo, show that our brains react to social rejection or isolation in ways that are remarkably similar to how they react to physical injury.
Wow. So being ignored can literally feel like getting hurt.
To the brain, yes. The signals are strikingly similar. It underscores just how fundamental our need for social connection is. It's not a luxury, it's a basic human need, like food or water.
And if that need isn't met over the long term, if loneliness becomes chronic,
Then we start to see real physiological consequences. It's not just a feeling anymore. It impacts the body.
how so?
Chronic loneliness can disrupt the body's stress response system. You get increased levels of cortisol, the stress hormone circulating over long periods.
Which isn't good.
Not at all. It can lead to increased inflammation throughout the body, weaken the immune system, making you more susceptible to illness. It can mess with your sleep, affect mood regulation, even impact brain regions involved in memory.
So it really highlights that loneliness is much more than just feeling sad about being alone. It has tangible health effects.
Very tangible. It's a serious public health issue, frankly, though often not treated as such.
And in our modern world, it feels like there's this strange contradiction, this paradox. We're hyper-connected, supposedly, through technology.
Right. Phones, social media, endless ways to connect.
Yet so many people report feeling more isolated than ever. Social media promises connection, but sometimes, well, it seems to backfire, doesn't it?
It absolutely can. It's the paradox of the digital age. We have unprecedented quantity of potential connections, but the quality is often missing.
What do you mean?
Well, those superficial interactions, like a quick comment, they may not satisfy that deep, evolved need we have for authentic, reciprocal, face-to-face relating.
That feeling of really being seen.
Exactly. And social media often fosters comparison, too. You see everyone's curated highlight reel, which can make you feel inadequate or like you're missing out, ironically increasing feelings of loneliness.
Yeah, that comparison trap is real. And those digital interactions, however convenient, maybe they just don't quite scratch the itch for real human presence.
I think that's right. There's a richness in embodied in-person interaction, the nonverbal cues, the shared energy in a physical space, that immediate emotional feedback loop that's often lost online. Our brains, developed over millennia for face-to-face group living, seem to know the difference.
It makes sense. And what about the demands of modern life itself? The focus on work, achievement, the hustle culture.
That definitely plays a role. There can be immense pressure to prioritize career success, individual achievement, sometimes at the direct expense of nurturing friendships, family ties, community involvement.
We might move away for a job, leaving our support systems behind.
Exactly. We weaken that social fabric, sometimes without even realizing it, in pursuit of other goals. That traditional village, that inherent support system. It feels like it's fading for many people.
Yeah, the village idea. It feels harder to find now.
It often requires more conscious effort to build and maintain community in today's more mobile, individualistic world.
And there's a cultural piece here too, isn't there? Especially in Western societies, there's such a high value placed on individualism, autonomy, independence.
Absolutely. And while independence certainly has its merits, sometimes it can be overemphasized to the point where needing connection is seen almost as a weakness, rather than the fundamental human need it is.
It's not a luxury.
It's a biological imperative. Interestingly, cultures that tend to be more collectivist, that prioritize strong family and community bonds, shared rituals, they often report lower rates of loneliness and generally higher life satisfaction.
That's really telling. Now, something else. Being in a romantic relationship, that doesn't automatically shield you from loneliness, does it?
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, feeling lonely within a partnership can be one of the most painful and confusing forms of loneliness.
Why is that?
Because your partner is the person you most expect to feel connected to, seen by, understood by. When that connection feels absent, despite the physical proximity and the relationship status, it can feel incredibly isolating, like a deep betrayal of expectation.
Intimacy without real emotional vulnerability. It feels like going through the motions.
Exactly. It can feel like a performance, lacking that genuine, authentic connection we crave. And emotional unavailability in a partner is a huge factor here.
Yeah, that term comes up a lot. Emotional unavailability.
Right. And often it's important to understand the person who is emotionally unavailable isn't trying to be distant or hurtful. Usually it's a defense mechanism.
Learn from past experiences.
Often, yes. Maybe from their own upbringing where emotions weren't safe or acknowledged or where vulnerability led to getting hurt. So they build this protective armor.
But that armor keeps intimacy out.
It creates these invisible walls. It's meant to protect them, but it ends up leaving both partners feeling isolated in their own way. It's a tragic dynamic, really.
So, okay, if people listening are resonating with some of this, feeling these things, what are some paths toward, well, healing or finding more connection? Therapy often comes up.
Therapy can be incredibly valuable, yes, particularly approaches like attachment-focused therapy or inner child work.
How do those help specifically?
They help you go back and understand those early relational patterns, those unmet emotional needs from childhood that might still be driving feelings of loneliness or emptiness today. It's about offering that younger part of yourself the understanding, the validation, maybe the safety it didn't get back then.
And beginning to build trust and safe relationships, maybe starting with the therapist.
Precisely. The therapeutic relationship itself can be a corrective emotional experience, a place to practice relating in a new, healthier way.
And rebuilding emotional intimacy, whether in therapy or in life, seems to involve vulnerability.
Ah, yes. Vulnerability. Researcher Brene Brown has done such important work highlighting this.
Yeah, her work is fantastic.
It really is. She makes the point so clearly. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's actually the birthplace of connection, of trust, of intimacy.
So sharing our real needs, our fears, letting ourselves be seen authentically.
That's it. Those are the building blocks. It's not about grand gestures, usually. It's about those small, consistent moments of showing up honestly, even when it feels risky. That's where true connection flourishes.
What about practices like mindfulness or somatic awareness, paying attention to the body?
Those can play a really significant role, too. Sometimes these feelings of isolation or emptiness aren't just thoughts in our head, they're felt experiences held in the body. Tension, numbness, a sense of hollowness.
Right.
So learning to connect with our physical sensations, practicing being present with whatever is arising without judgment, even learning to sort of befriend moments of solitude rather than fearing them that can start to transform emptiness into a sense of inner presence, maybe even richness.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's tackle some common questions that often come up around this. Like, is it actually possible to feel lonely even when you're surrounded by friends and family?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. We've touched on this, but it bears repeating. Loneliness is about the subjective quality of your connections, not the sheer number of people around. If you don't feel genuinely seen, heard, or understood by those people, you can feel incredibly lonely.
Okay. And what about emotional emptiness? That the same thing as depression?
That's a great question. They can certainly overlap, and chronic emptiness can be a symptom of depression, but they aren't always the same thing.
How are they different?
Depression often involves persistent sadness, loss of interest or pleasure, changes in sleep or appetite, feelings of worthlessness. Emotional emptiness might be characterized more by a lack of feeling numbness, apathy, a sense of detachment or meaninglessness, rather than intense sadness. But both are serious, and if someone's experiencing either, seeking professional support is really important.
Right. And how can therapy specifically help someone who feels lonely? What does it do?
Well, at its core, therapy provides a dedicated, safe relational space. It's a relationship designed to help you explore your experiences. So you can delve into the roots of your loneliness, identify maybe patterns in relationships that aren't serving you, and importantly, experience what it feels like to be deeply listened to and understood, maybe for the first time. That experience itself can be healing.
That makes sense. And the fear of closeness, why do some people develop that, even if they crave connection?
Again, it often goes back to past experiences. If intimacy, closeness, or vulnerability was associated with pain, rejection, criticism, or feeling unsafe in some way, the natural response is to build defenses against getting hurt again. So consciously, you might want connection, but unconsciously, there's a powerful fear pushing it away.
It's like a protective mechanism that's outlived its usefulness.
Exactly. It made sense then, but it causes problems now.
And mindfulness, can that really help reduce loneliness? It seems kind of inward focused.
It can, yes. By increasing self-awareness, mindfulness helps you get clearer about your own feelings and needs. It also anchors you more in the present moment, which can reduce rumination about past hurts or future worries that often fuel loneliness. And by fostering self-compassion, it can help you feel less alienated from yourself, which is often a component of deep loneliness. It builds inner connection.
Okay, that makes sense. Finally, for someone listening who's feeling lonely right now, what are some, practical steps they could maybe start thinking about?
Okay, practical steps. One is actively prioritizing face-to-face interactions over purely digital ones where possible. Even small interactions can make a difference. Another is finding ways to engage with your community, volunteering, joining a club, taking a class, something based on shared interests. That creates opportunities for connection.
Good idea.
Also, consciously practicing vulnerability in relationships you already have, even in small ways. Sharing a little more honestly about how you're feeling. And crucially, don't hesitate to seek emotional support when you need it, whether from trusted friends, family, or a professional. Reaching out is a sign of strength.
Those are really concrete things. Thank you. It feels like loneliness and emotional emptiness are, well, just incredibly complex parts of being human with such deep roots.
They really are. Stretching back to our earliest bonds, shaped by our brains, our culture, our life experiences.
And it's so important to remember, isn't it, that feeling these things is not some kind of personal failure.
Absolutely not. It's often a very natural, understandable response to a lack of genuine, fulfilling connection, which is a fundamental human need.
So ultimately, tackling loneliness isn't necessarily about just getting more friends or contacts.
No, it's much more about fostering deeper, more authentic connections. First, perhaps with ourselves, understanding our own needs and patterns. And then, having the courage to be vulnerable, to show up as our true selves, and to be really present, emotionally available in our interactions with others.
Presence and authenticity.
That's really the heart of it.
Well, we hope this deep dive has offered some valuable insights into the psychology of loneliness and emotional emptiness.
We hope so too. It's a topic that touches so many lives.
If you found this discussion thought-provoking, maybe helpful, please do consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to stay updated on our future explorations. We're always aiming to understand ourselves and each other just a little bit better.